so here we have coming up a section of our green coffee course. This is SCA Foundations Green Coffee, and it is certified online at How to Coffee Pro. So you can join in a group of students, and we have these phone calls, Google meetings. You have one-on-one coaching with me, and you can study online, self-paced, while connecting with us. Eventually, you'll finish your course and get certified with the Specialty Coffee Association. So this is just some free content. I wanted to share part of what goes on behind the scenes when you join a class with us. If you like this, if you share it with someone, if you subscribe, let me know. Show comments and notes down below. I can't wait to hear from you. And if you have any questions about getting certified online with me at howtocoffeepro.com, you can visit the site there or just reach out. Can't wait to hear from you, and keep growing, friends. Today's section is on green coffee, and specifically green coffee grading. Now, there's this interesting thing that happens when you talk about green coffee grading. Sometimes the implication is you want to know the quality score. So you want to know, is this a high grade, middle grade, or low grade coffee? The other thing that happens with grading is we can move into sizing and defect identification and kind of this whole analysis of the green coffee. So there's this complete green coffee picture that we can get from grading, and then there's also just the actual scoring or referencing of a green coffee grading. So depending on where you go in the world or what forms or system you're using, you may see that there are some overlaps in terms of quality, defects, and sizing. So we're going to touch over a number of those basics and just introduce these concepts. In front of us today, we have an Ethiopian washed coffee, we have a Kenyan washed coffee, and we have a Peruvian washed coffee. So Ethiopia, Kenya, and Peru. And I intentionally selected these for a reason. They are all washed, and we will reference the SCA washed Arabica form, which is for coffee grading. You can see over here, coffee grading form. So if you'd like this form, it's a free download. You can print it out at sca.training under the training modules. I printed this one from the professional. Maybe you can find it on intermediate or foundation, but it's definitely in the professional PDF section. So in front of me here, I have these 3 coffee samples, and it is the same amount of coffee in each one. 350 grams of coffee should be used for a coffee grading assessment for the coffee grading form. One of the details that we go through on this coffee grading form, and this is not a video about coffee defects. We cover that in other areas in the course, and we cover that in other sections and videos where we will look at category 1 defects and category 2 defects. On this form, you can count how many category 1 defects are there, how many category 2 defects are there, and specify which ones fall into which categories. So if we have, if we find a full black or if we find a fungus damage, we will mark that on the form. Over on category 2, if we find a couple partial blacks, no partial sours, no parchments, maybe a few floaters, immatures, we will just make a note on each of those, how much should go into each category. At the end, we will add up the total score, so we are looking for full defect equivalents. If you get even one full black or one full sour or one foreign matter, then that becomes a full defect. If you have 5 or more severe insect damage, that also is a full defect. Now, maybe you just have 4 severe. I'm looking at the camera, something's happening and the light is shifting, so I apologize for the camera lighting. If you have 4, 3, 2, 1 severe insect damage, that does not count as a full defect. So under the category 1 primary defects, we will count up, is there at least one full defect or not? If there's no full defect, then it can move on to be classified with the category 2 secondary defects and see if it still maintains its specialty status. With one full defect, either in category 1 or category 2, then you will be bumped out of that specialty grading system. Over here, if you have 5 of something or 10 of something, then that also equals 1 full defect. The measure of 1 full defect is basically if I were to roast 350 grams of Kenyan coffee and there was 1 full defect or 1 equivalent full defect, so maybe 5 severe insect damages or 1 full black or 10 slight insect damages, then that would be noticeable in the cup of coffee that I was drinking. And so that would push me out of the specialty status. What should you do if you're a producer or a grower? If you're a coffee buyer and you want to work with this person, just do a little more processing at the mill, at origin, before selling this coffee as specialty grade, because it does have enough defects inside that it will be noticeable in the cup. Less than 5 or less than 1 or less than 10, however those defects are counted, should not be noticeable in the cup. So that's how we use the green coffee grading form. There's also a section here for moisture readings, water activity, green coffee color gradients, and then the roasted coffee as well. Now for roasted coffee, you only use 100 grams of roasted coffee, and you're specifically looking for Quakers, those really light colored tan brown beans in the midst of the darker naturally or specific color to the roast degree that you've roasted. They do not have any of the off-color Quakers. Okay, so that's the cupping form. And then what I specifically want to look at in this is, one, we can classify if that's specialty or not with the washed green Arabica form. Now we use this washed green Arabica form, and specifically it is washed because we can't imply these same standards upon natural processed coffees or Robusta coffees. There is a different standard and a different process by which you determine are these specialty or are these fine for Robusta Canephora or the natural processed coffees. Okay, now part of introducing a class like this and part of doing this virtual instruction is just letting you see some of the different tools that we use. So I've already measured out the 3 coffee samples. What I have them on here is a black rubberized mat. You can use a black matte, not glossy, but a black matte paperboard, cardboard, something of that nature that will let you see the color of the green coffee and just let the green coffee show you, is it dark, is it translucent, is it natural green, is it white, are there defects? And so you want a map that you can work on. I like this one, it has an edge. I just bought this online, and you can find other such resources for grading your coffee upon. Scale, you'll need a scale to weigh and measure your beans, not just the 350 grams, but what you can do afterward when you use the sizing levels, you can size your coffee and then weigh out how much coffee falls at each level. We want to find our percentages. This is a handy little kit from Colino. You can see the name etched on the sides. Come into focus, Colino. And the way coffee sizing works is that each of the levels, each of the tiers, will progressively get smaller. So this first one is labeled 19, and then the next one is 18, 17, 16, 15, and then there's a tray at the bottom to catch the coffees, which is closed. So this Colino is really cute. It was a lot of work to put together, you know, laser cut, and then it's, you know, it's a little fragile, but it's lightweight, so if you wanted to travel with it, you would just wrap it up well. I think it would travel nicely, throw it into a bag or a hard case. And then, yeah, it works great for class settings, like when I want multiple workstations. So the Colino is one option. If you can find this online, it's a little hard to find the kit. They come in and out of stock, but you're talking $200-300. It comes in this handy little carrying case. Now, I do not sell the Colino. What is this? Got other information in there. Great. I didn't know that. That was one of my scales. It was the instruction manual for a scale. These are the robust. These are the ones that I use all the time just because they're heavy, they're wood, they're metal, and I have all the sizes. So the sizes are labeled, and I actually put these black marks here just to help me find and navigate which side I'm working on. 20, 19, 18, 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, and then a sealed metal base. So with each of these, what are we talking about when we talk about coffee sizing? We're talking about 10/64ths of an inch, or 16/54ths of an inch, 20/64ths of an inch. So those are just fractions, and we're talking about the diameter of this hole. The diameter of this hole is 20/64ths of an inch, and this one is 19/64ths of an inch. So those are very small 1/64th of an inch increments. If you look at the metric, it's about half a millimeter for each of those increments. A coffee sizing chart, you can get a reference. I have it here on my green one there. The green one is coffee defects. So that's a quick cheat for the coffee defects. And then sizing green samples is on the gray card. Bring it into focus. So on the sizing, a 20 is a millimeter 7.94, or the ISO standard is 8.0. The 19 is 7.54. So it's just 4/10 of a millimeter down in size from the 20 to the 19. So this is a really quick and handy reference. If you want to get a set of these cards, there are 6 of them. They have Linné du Café, water standards, green coffee defects, green coffee sizing, super handy cards, and they work as lids for your cupping. So when you grind your coffee, you can cover your cups and preserve the fragrance. Now, what I would do with my 350 grams, I would pour it on top of the Colino, I would pour it on top of this, and then I would just shake it all the way through. I'll just shake that 350 grams all the way through. It takes a little while to get through all the levels, and it's a little heavy to hold this much metal and wood. It's rather large, as you can see. Now, when we run classes, I like to split up into pairs. I like to give this team 2 or 3 coffees, this team 2 or 3 coffees, and then what we do is I actually give them a range. And so one of the teams will work with even numbers, and one of the teams will work with odd numbers. Now, that was something I enjoyed when I took my courses. Okay, we're going to start at 10 there. So let's just go like this. That means 11 will be here, then 12 will be here. 13 over here, 14 over here, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. So, since we go 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, that means anything that is retained on this screen size when I pour in my 350 gram sample will be a 20 plus grain size. So the green coffee size is important. Some people want larger beans or smaller beans for their blending purposes, for their roasting protocol, for their flavor or expectations of the coffee. Anything held above this would be a 20 plus, and then anything that falls through will be below 20. But as you notice, it's an 18, so it'll be above 18. So that means 18, 18 and a half, 19, 19 and a half. Anything within that range is going to be held here. So we can call this an 18-19, or we can say this is 18 to 20, this is 20 plus. And that's usually the way that I will score a coffee, or rather size a coffee. I just said score. That's the way I will size a coffee. Anything that falls through here will be 16, 17. Anything that falls here will be, what are we on? 14, 15. And so on. If anything falls below the 10, it's below 10, and it's usually just dust, broken pieces, fragments. it is really important to get that out of your coffee because that stuff will just burn. Now over here, we'll be talking 19 plus, so 19, 20, 21. You can see if there's a percentage there. Over here, this screen will be a 17, 18 screen size. Over here, this will be 15, 16 screen size, 13, 14 screen size, and so on. We just need to make sure that we put a base under this, or just if you want to let it fall through, you can. But we only have one base for this coffee sorter. Okay, so which one should we use? We're going to do the Ethiopia, and just by looking at these, I can see the Ethiopia is a small bean, the Kenya is a pretty good sized bean, and the Peru is a pretty good sized bean. I'm thinking this Kenya and the Peru will have some 19s and 20s. The Ethiopia looks like it'll pretty much all fall through. So I'm going to use the odd on this Ethiopian. And then when you're sizing your coffee, what you want to do is you want to just have a notepad that you can make a record. You're going to make a record of how much coffee falls through each level. So on this one, we're going to have our 19 plus. 19 plus, we're going to have 17, 18, we're going to have 15, 16, we're going to have 13, 14, and then we'll have 11, 12. So on each of these, what I want to do is I want to record how many grams of coffee are maintained on that 19 plus screen, on that 17, 18 screen. So at the end, I'm going to take simple division and I'll divide this number by 350 that we started with, the next number by 350 that we started with, the next one, and so on. So for each of these categories, I can find the percentage that falls in each category. Now, I won't go through the long form of that, just because you don't have to watch me do all the calculations. Now you'll notice too, this is a lot easier to shake when I have half the number of screens, not nearly as heavy. Just give it a good shake. You feel like everything's had a chance to pass through, fall through. Okay. Now, there are there are 3 little coffee beans on top of this 19. So that's not even 1%. If you wanted to say 1%, you could, but I'm going to call it 0%. Just estimating here for the sake of speed. Now on this one, you can see against my black shirt, this is our 17, 18. So 17, 18. Compare that to the 15, 16, and you're seeing there's a real difference. So this might be like a 5-10%, maybe a 5% if I actually measured it out. This one here, we're looking at a significant majority of the coffee. At least 60-70% of the coffee is there. And then there is still a significant amount in this 13-14. This 13-14 screen is holding more coffee than the 17-18. So we could say the majority of the coffee is 13, 14, 15, 16. And it's probably, there's a couple little beans underneath there. We're probably at about 80%. I would say maybe 20% of the coffee is in the remaining screens. Maybe less than 20%, 15%. And so when I grade a coffee, I'm not grading that bigger beans taste better, smaller beans taste better. But what I do want to grade is that more consistency will give you a better cup. So if we have 95% all falling on one screen, we are going to have a significantly more consistent roast development and a better tasting cup of coffee than if we only had, 60% here, 20% here, 10% here, 5% here, 5% here. That broad spread is going to make some beans roast faster and go darker or get scorched or tipped or burnt. Other beans will be less developed. They're not going to be fully roasted inside, or there's uneven development in those beans because there's such a range. So what you would do you know, as I said, maybe we had 15% there, and we'll call that 65% there, and there was about 25% there. How much does that add up to? We're already at 95, and then 5% down there, 100. So if that is how your coffee spread out, 15, 65, 25, 5, you feel there is this general area where the majority of the coffee is between 13 to 17 screen size. So if you say, you know, 80, 90% of this coffee is 13 to 17 screen size, that's just a way to communicate to your buyers. That's a way to communicate to the roaster. There is a variable in this green coffee, and it's not perfectly even. So some countries will use different language. Some countries will use the language of 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Other countries, like Kenya, will use a language such as A, double A, B, maybe something in between A and B is AB, C, P-berry. So here's our Kenya. I don't mind that, except that an A in school, we're all taught as children that A's are better than B's, and B's are better than C's. And below C, you're getting in trouble. So, this coffee, I do know, was sold to me as an AB. Now, I like Kenya AB, especially for some, sometimes the body or acidity, especially for espresso. I like the way it blends. Okay, so this was our 20 plus. We're not just talking 19 plus, like there was a little in the Ethiopia. This is 20 plus. So there are some 20s on there. Now there's a real significant 18-19 screen. It's nice concentration. Almost the whole screen is covered there. So that was the 18-19. And then here's the 16-17. Also a good concentration, good filling. I would say that that's just about, you know, that's like 47.5%. Pretty much 95% of the coffee is in these two screens. So 16, 17, 18, 19. And then that's below. So very little below, very little above. We actually have a really good concentration of coffee, 16, 17, 18, 19. And that's classic AB. It's the 18, 19 is your A, and the 16, 17 is your B, so it's called an AB. And that's really a way to communicate that this is a range of coffee, which makes a lot of sense. When you have a coffee that's growing, it's an agricultural product. Some of the cherries and beans are going to be bigger on the tree. Some of the cherries and beans are going to be smaller on the tree. So as long as you're not blending together lots of different harvest times, lots of different regions, lots of different soil and plant qualities, like probably happened, and which is common in Ethiopia, when you have a more structured, orderly processing, as this farm from Kenya did, you will have a more consistent range of coffee, and that will help you roast more consistently, have a more consistent profile in the cup. So, there we go on the Ethiopia and the Kenya. It's really good for you as a roaster to know what kind of spread in terms of size am I going to experience in this coffee, and then how will that influence the way I roast the coffee. So real quick, finally, because I don't have another screen, I'm not going to clean these. With your 350 grams of coffee, you'll just kind of lay these out on your green grating mat, the black mat of green grating. And then you'll just kind of, my advice to you is that you take this coffee and you just kind of work through it. I like to work from one side to the other as much as you can with natural light, with full lighting. Sometimes you can get a lamp right over the top of it You're just going to go through and you're going to see, are there any coffees that have a little bite and black spot on the end? That's a severe or a slight insect damage like this one. Are there any coffees that look a little abnormal? There's a little bite. Are there any coffees that are oddly shaped, oddly colored? You know, just those simple category 2. Kind of a broken or split bean. That one has this goat hoof. It kind of, the bean splits like this. Looks like the hoof from a goat. This is a very clean Peruvian coffee. So it's easy for me just to scroll across this. I might roll it over once or twice as I go across. Now this one's kind of dried. It looks a little withered. It has this concave. It's like it dries up and folds in. I just saw another one here that looks like that. That's probably just a dry or withered bean. It could be an immature bean. This one here is a little pale and it has a bite on the end of it. So that one, when I roasted it, would have definitely been Quaker-like. Just has that light colored, okay, that one's kind of broken. So what happens is with this washed coffee, as it goes through the mill, if the processing equipment is too tight, or if it is moving a lot, sometimes it can crush the beans and create little fissures or breaks in the beans. You'll see that different farms, different processing equipment, maybe it's more in tune, maybe the beans have a higher or lower density so they can withstand some of the cleaning that they go through. All in all, this is a really clean coffee. Nothing is jumping out as black or translucent or sour. There's no foreign matter. Just a few category 2 defects. Definitely would not disqualify it. You could add those up and you could make a record on your green coffee grading form. All right. That does it for a real quick introduction, how you use different grading screens. You can certainly put 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 all together, and then you can figure out how does this coffee actually sort out. Is there more 16, 17, 18 and not so much 19? You can go through that with all of your screens in place. You can look for your green coffee defects. You can judge the color. It may just be part of the processing or the coffee variety, but you can make a note about color, any smell, and of course you can take moisture and density readings and record those as well. All in all, we want to fall within our metrics. Which are here on our cheat sheet. Green coffee, water, we want a moisture content between 10 and 12%. If it falls below 10, the coffee is going to get woody and papery. It's going to really lose a lot of that vibrant acidity and sweetness and body. It's starting to break down, or it's just too dry and it won't maintain. If it's above 12, it's at danger of mold and bacterial growth, fermenting, water activity. I don't have a water activity measure, but if you do, that's another indicator of how long and well that coffee will keep its quality. There's some notes about Quakers there as well. And ultimately, you're going to roast that coffee and move over to the cupping table. And then you'll have this full picture of your green coffee analysis. Green coffee grading, not just in size or defects, but that whole picture of the green coffee. All right, we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining this green coffee class.
Find my way.